Welcome in, everybody. This is Dynasty Mode. It's the unofficial EA Sports College Football Game podcast. Arky is my name. That's Demetri. Ravanos Demetri. Man, I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm so good. I hope you're good too, because I got a thought experiment for today.
Okay, I'm good. I'm not great only because as you and I are talking and I am sitting upstairs, there are cookies waiting downstairs that I am
Oh,
not with at the moment. So this
okay.
will be a 4-minute episode.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you giving me an extra 3.5 from right now. So thank you for
Listen,
that.
it's more than my wife gets. Hey yo,
Hey yo, rim shot or rim shot. I don't know what it is. I don't know what you're getting.
I see what you did there.
I
see
don't
what
want
you
to.
did there.
I felt like I insinuated, but I didn't mean to.
Sure.
Before we get to the thought experiment, I you brought this up, by the way. So this has had me thinking ever since you sort of alluded to this.
You don't have to be so accusatory about it.
You made me do it.
You did this.
Before we get to that real quick, because you brought this up in a previous episode, and I've been sort of having my wheels sort of spin on this in a good and bad way, trying to get some traction on what this idea would be, because I really kind of like it, but I want to flesh it out a little bit.
Okay.
But first, I started by saying I'm good. I'm actually in a little bit of a bad headspace right now, Demetri. And I guess I guess I'll share. Remember when I told you that like I was getting excited again to play NCAA 14, right? Like I thought I wanted to start a new dynasty, begin another one. Well, I this week I felt like I had some positive momentum. I spent the weekend really, punching up the old resume. I called in a couple of favors. Had some people sort of look at some plays I was drawing up, see what they thought. And I basically pushed all my chips into the center of the table, and I started looking for jobs this week, man. And, I wanted to, if this is going to be my final run, and it could be before we start with a brand new video game.
Yeah.
That I thought maybe this time I go a different approach and I start from the very top. I go with some of my dream schools, right? Some of the ones that I think would be elite level to sort of play at, whether it's stadium that I really like, conferences, the teams themselves. Again, we're talking about teams going into the 2013 season. So go back and think about that a little bit. But I started pushing out some emails to my top schools on Monday, and some of them were kind of mean to me, actually, Demetri. I posted some of these on Twitter, and the one I got from Tennessee was really, really mean. It was just a gif of Bugs Bunny saying no, and that one kind of hurt the ego a little bit. But all 10 of my dream schools on Monday, like they just said no, and most of them pretty quickly.
Arky, I don't want to ruin your bit, but this is a long build up to saying I haven't started yet.
Oh, that I haven't started the Dynasty?
Yeah.
No, I'm in the process of finding a job. What's Dynasty I'm gonna be able to just start if I don't have a job?
Sure,
right?
No, I hear you. I hear you. It is a tough job market out there for anybody. And listen, kudos for wanting to start at the top. I mean, I think it makes you a cheating scumbag to start a game that way, but kudos to you for embracing who you are as a human being.
Well, I don't get to be the full scumbag that I want to be, because then I went down back to my fallback schools, which included like Purdue and Arkansas and Iowa State, and they all said no too. So right now, Demetri, I am sans job. And I'm going into the weekend a little not great, but I'm hoping this episode peps me up, and maybe someone will call at some point.
Do you remember in the I guess it would have been like, I think it was probably like the 07 game. That's the first time I can remember like the coaching carousel where you could go a season without a job. Like you could go a season where all you could do was simulate games.
Yeah, I do absolutely remember that, because I've done it. I've done it to be like,
I have too.
I mainly do it to see what would happen. Like, would just people forget about me? Like, would I not be offered a job again? No, I'd be fine.
So this was pre, for those of you that don't remember this was pre coaching carousel, right? This was back when you had to complete whatever contract it was, and then you were, you could pick from whatever job was out there that you wanted, right? When those contracts were up. I remember quitting a job to can't remember if I was quitting it to try and take a job or what the reason was, but it was the way, like, you had to learn by trial and error that you do that, you lose a star rating. So you may not be able to jump from one school to the next. And then eventually the game learned, oh, no, you can do that in real life.
You very much can.
Right.
So I'll just say this and then we'll get on to the thought experiment. At the end of this week, I sent out my resume to everybody now. So all the FBS institutions in the 2013, the NCAA 2014 game now have my resume. Now I just wait for somebody to call because I'm not putting up with that rejection and putting it up on Twitter again for everyone to see.
I do like the idea that the only school that might want you is Idaho, who will no longer be in the game when it comes out again.
If it has to be, like, I'll do it. I'm willing to do it. Idaho, if you're listening in NCAA 2014, I'm available. Let's negotiate. Okay.
Do we give in real life? Do we give the University of Idaho enough credit for having maybe the coolest nickname in college sports?
The Vandals.
The Vandals. Like I love how petty crime the name the Vandals is. Like their logo could just be a spray painted eye and the bottom stripe of the capital I just goes into a penis, right? Like that would be something a Vandal would do.
Is graphic design your hobby or?
Oh no, it's my passion. It's your passion. Yeah, this is a hobby, Arky.
Okay. So, all right. So I'll keep you guys updated, and Demetri mainly, if I end up getting a job. I hope so. If not, I'm just going to create a school at this point. Like I'm just going to make one up. By the way, like I'm trying to do this honestly. I don't want the modified version of the game where you can get the newer teams, like the Coastal Carolinas and stuff that have been added, and updated graphics and stuff. Like I want who was there. So Idaho is still an option for me. So,
right.
Fingers crossed, and may he, the man upstairs, bless us with some employment at some point.
All right, very good.
You brought up several episodes ago an idea when we were talking about sort of ways to implement new ideas into the game, new features into the new college football game. When we were talking about, I think, ways to make Dynasty mode the feature of the game even better, and it got me thinking a lot about it since, like, I spend way more time than I should thinking about this thing. And it's the idea that you brought up of an athletic director mode.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of flesh this out as a sort of a thought experiment just to see if there is a way we could actually make this thing interesting. And I know I'm coming at it from a negative standpoint very early on, but it's because I harken back to another beautiful EA product, NFL head coach, right?
Right.
Where like essentially all you were doing is managing contracts, the draft, adding a playbook, I think they had a follow-up in like 2009 where you could you can create a play or two. You essentially were the general manager and coach, and you manage some personalities, so on and so forth. But like, it was a very broad view, and you may be surprised to know this, but like, if you combine the two games, they sold way under 1 million copies. Way under.
Right. What is interesting is in the UK for sure, maybe all of Europe, there is a very popular GM-based computer game called Football Manager that is all of, like you take an EPL team and you build them from the front office, right? And for people, and look, I'm not a soccer aficionado at all. I get very patriotic during the World Cup, and then I forget the sport exists until the next World Cup. But, I know that I guess contracts, right? Because it's not necessarily free agency, but like contracts are wonky, right? Like contracts are weird in professional soccer and European soccer. So it really takes a certain element of understanding to make that game successful. I remember when I was a freshman in college. How old are you? I always forget. Like, what's the spread, the difference in age in us?
I was born in 1985, so that makes me 36-ish.
Okay, so you're only 4 years younger than I am. So do you remember front office football and front office baseball? These were PC games.
I am aware of the titles. I never played, but I'm aware of them.
Okay, so front office baseball was a game you could go to a store and buy. Front office football, as I recall, it was like one of the very early, like pay to download kind of games. The first version was the 99 NFL season. And I'm telling you, like me and my roommates played that. Like we all had our own franchises going, dynasties, whatever you want to call them, going. Like the tradition of doing everything but playing the games, I think exists among sports fans when it comes to video games. I think this game specifically, NCAA football, is designed for this. I mean, if they were ever to bring back March Madness, I think it could work too. But like the way college sports fans follow their favorite college sports does have a lot to do with what goes on from the business standpoint.
No, it's true, and like I said, I did not play a ton of NFL head coach because to me, negotiating contracts is the least fun part of playing like NBA 2K or something like that. You know, like I really don't care about this fake money that's going to be going around. Like, give Kristaps Porzingis $200 million. I don't care. Like it like just whatever. I'm just.
He's got all those rape victims to pay off.
Well, listen, you have been following my storylines closer than I thought. So kudos to you for being online.
That's I love the fact that could be a storyline in NBA 2K. Oh, this game got dark.
Hey, by the way, it's much cleaner than it used to be. The game, not the NBA. I don't know much about the NBA. You know, it could be worse. You could be looking at what Cleveland's looking at right now. The city, not the football franchise. So what I'm interested in is that aspect to me is super boring, right? Like the initial, like the sort of paying out of coaches, is sort of managing personalities like that, right? To me, that's not interesting. But where we sort of, I think, can find some kind of ground that could make this interesting, to me, is if we're looking at some kind of aspect where we add a little more control of the game itself, you know? And it's hard to do as the athletic director, right? Well, so, like, what I first want to ask you is, when you sort of, because it was your idea when you were bringing it up, what were you sort of envisioning what this could possibly look like? And let's pick this thing apart.
All right, so to me, I actually don't care about having control of the game, because athletic director mode, to me, what would make it interesting, I guess, is to approach it very similarly. And I know I've talked about this a lot since we've started doing this podcast, but in athletic director mode, you would have to approach it almost like an NBA 2K story mode, right? Like I think the things that would make an athletic director mode interesting are not just going out and hiring coaches. It is not just well, I mean, I guess that's it, right? Like, it's not just going out and hiring coaches. It is all of the backroom politicking that comes with being an athletic director. I want to have relationships to manage with boosters. I want to have to decide, am I raising money for a new athletic facility? Am I trying to I think it'd be cool if you have to balance football and another, I guess, in the rest of the athletic department, right? Like maybe that wouldn't be a huge focus, but certainly you've got to figure out how much time can you devote to this sport if there is, like maybe just like the old NCAA probation, right? Like maybe something pops up where it's like, hey, academic scandal with the women's soccer team. And you've got to, go and deal with that. And while you do things get wonky with the football team if you have not established a strong culture there.
I'll be honest with you. Like, if you would add a mode like this to the game, I don't care about the soccer team. right? Like, let me just focus on keeping this football coach happy, right? Let me make sure that Lincoln Riley is successful in Los
Right.
Angeles. All right. I
Right.
don't care that much.
I,
Like I don't want like athletic director of the entire university, which you would be technically like in this, scenario, right? But
yeah.
I think like because I wouldn't be going and seeing the scores. I mean, I don't want to. NFL head coach had like a version where like you were just reading emails, and you're like, I don't. What is that? I'm not interested in this. Like this sucks, right?
Right.
But like so if I don't need to sort of read the emails, but maybe like from other sports, I can start with just football. At least I feel like I can start to wrap my arms around this. So okay, like would are you still wanting this to like the dream scenario for you to be the entire university?
Yeah, I mean, like I think maybe you're misunderstanding. Like I don't want to necessarily play out the entire university's athletic department. But if you have to devote, just like you had to devote however much time someone was going to sit out with probation, if you had to devote X amount of hours from, that you are away from the football team, away from the football machine, right? Do you come back to a booster mutiny or something like that? I kind of think what would make athletic director mode fun is almost like elements of a role-playing game outside of sports where you have to figure out how to walk the line of accomplishing what you want to and keeping the boosters happy. Like imagine playing out the Alan Green, Brian Harsin scenario in video game form.
Or literally you can just go like 9 months before when you could be playing out the hey, is there literally an overthrow of the Auburn athletic department from inside the football building happening right now with the defensive coordinator?
I mean, I think it would be really interesting to sort of watch your I guess job security, maybe popularity sort of slide back and forth. And can you get to a point where it doesn't matter what the team is doing on the field? Like, have you burned so many bridges with the powerful people or the powerful collection of ones and zeros in your particular game that you are going to have to that you have to move on?
Do you see this as like an option where you can play as long as an athletic director as you could as a coach? Like you can go 20, 30 plus seasons, whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe you can't, one of the things about, like if you do franchise mode in Madden, or at least when I used to play Madden, if you do franchise mode in Madden, you could sort of do this like you could sort of play it as the GM, right? Just never play the actual games, and you're never going to get fired. I think that's something that would have to be on the table in AD mode. That like you can't just set up shop and this is your school forever and ever, because at some point you've hit the pinnacle and you have to have the option to move on. And also, like realistically, once you hit the pinnacle, you also kind of have to have a new version of the game. Has to change, right? Like Greg Byrne, the game of being an athletic director is completely different for that guy than the athletic director at, say, Vanderbilt, right? Like it doesn't mean that there's not pressure on Byrne. It's a different kind of pressure. It is less wiggle room to get things wrong for that guy.
Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama. By the way, I do like the few times people have called us out for being Alabama-centric, the state of, which is natural. That's why I brought up Lincoln Riley at the beginning, yo. That's the only other name I know.
I don't know what to tell you people. Like Arky lives in Huntsville. I grew up in Mobile and went to school in Tuscaloosa. Yes, I live in North Carolina now, but like when we're talking college football, we're going to be kind of Alabama-centric a little bit.
I'll be honest with you. It kind of means something here. So
I would say, Arky, if I may, I'd say it just means more.
Okay, I know graphic design is your passion. Is marketing your passion too?
No. So I have to be honest with you. I do have an ulterior motive for saying that. God, I hate to give away this secret in public, but you know what? Whenever you say that phrase with conviction, Paul Feinbaum appears with a check for you. just magically, wherever you are.
Oh, dude, for real?
For real.
All right, let me try it. Demetri, man, around here, it just means more.
Arky, he could tell that you didn't mean it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Paul Feinbaum, ironically, because he is Jewish, is just like Santa Claus, and he sees you when you're sleeping, and he knows when you're awake.
Okay, so Judaism aside, let me ask you a question. I think this mode has to have some type of Barry Alvarez element with it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Like there, I guess. So, all right. So I do think I'm trying to figure out like kind of the way to talk through this, right? Because on the one hand, like you're playing the game, you're going to be able to be whatever kind of athletic director you want to be. But you're right. Like there should be some element in the game of coaches, like of it getting around like, oh, you don't want to go work for Arky Shea. You're not really the coach if Arky Shea is there.
Right. What makes you say that? He just coached like 3 straight bowl games for no reason. Like I know he's because they were in an interim kind of thing, but like I think he just wants to be the coach. I think that's what he Yeah, I think that if you want to make this, at least for me, for a fuller experience where it isn't just sort of managing spreadsheets and trying to, figure out
right.
bonus points for relationships like it's the the FedEx booster angry or something at you or something like that, then like I feel like I do need some type of tether back to the actual game itself, and it could be really for the majority of the point like where I'm literally just able to watch from a sideline view. Or inside a press box or something. Or
so along the lines of the Barry Alvarez factor of the game, I do think that like there should be some element of like, do you want to go down to the sideline? Do you want to? Do you want to pop into the coach's box to say hello? Like I do think that there are personality things, and again, this is why I think this mode you compare it more to a non-sports RPG than you do something in the NCAA football universe, because there is so much politicking in the real world that goes into the AD job that you would have to incorporate that into any sort of video game mode.
No, we're looking. We think this is just a feature for the game, right? We don't want an athletic director game, right?
Oh no, I mean, like I think that something like this, very similar to like I was talking about front office football earlier, like that's the kind of thing that like the niche nerd community creates to download for like 99 cents on the iPhone. But if you just include this mode in the game, I'm very happy.
Okay, so again, I'm trying to tether it back to the game just a little bit, right? So what if in this...
Why is Bernie Mac trending on Twitter?
I'm not sure if I want to know. And why are you scrolling Twitter while we're recording, bro?
I'm doing multiple things at once. Oh, there's a debate of whether or not he was actually funny.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
Like there's about to be a debate of whether this element is actually fun itself.
Yeah.
But if we're going to tether it back to the game just a little bit to continue that, I do kind of like sort of a piece of what NFL head coach did, which was, Bill Cowher was on the cover, right?
Right.
And the Steelers.
It wasn't the second one. Wasn't Dungy on the cover of the second one?
That's right.
Yeah.
That was NFL head coach 08 or 09.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did like.
I never played the games, but I can picture them in the store.
Well, I'll give you a hint. Oh, actually, the first game sold like just under 500,000 copies. The second game, half. Half.
Honestly, when you said 500, when you said under 500,000 copies before you said the number, I would not have been surprised if you said under 100,000 copies.
Well, I think you get that like it's never been done with the NFL and with football and like Americanized football. So you sort of think there's got some peak interest, and then they brought out a second version. And you're like, no, there's not really. There's not that much.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like you've got to be kind of a wonk for these games to be into the version where you don't actually play the game. Like I mean, I could be very happy for a long time playing NCAA without ever actually playing a game. I think there is enough to do without playing the game or without relying on just, mashing buttons in gameplay mode. I think that to see it expanded like that, it's just one of those great rewards for how loyal we have been to this franchise for so long.
Yeah, without having a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the icing on the cake, right? Like they've been able to rely on us without even putting out a game.
Yeah, good for you guys, right? Like I don't know how you did this, but man, you got our pants tied. We're looking for something. Okay, so here's what I'm interested in is again tethering it back to the game, like I mentioned. So, like Bill Cowher started with the NFL head coach, in hell, I don't know, 2000. Let's call it 86.
Sure.
When that PlayStation 2 game came out, and Xbox, right? Who cares? You started, I think, after the Steelers won the Super Bowl, and then you went on. I think Bill Cowher would retire, and then like one of the coordinators was going to take the head coaching job, and I may have these sort of slightly fudged with that specifics, but then you would go on to an interview process, right? And then you would select from 5 or 6 teams or something that would say, "Man, that was great. Come be our coach."
Yep.
And then you would start going through preparing for the draft, and Mel Kiper would tell you, check out this prospect and blah, blah, blah. But again, you just sort of went from just on the field, the game, to happening. Again, I'm bringing back the Barry Alvarez comparison for a different reason. What if you had sort of a swan song as a coach, whether it be the last few games, you played the bowl game itself or something as a coach, and sort of that's where your journey kind of begins, right? These journeys for like these kind of story modes in sports always have a little start somewhere, right? So what if you start like you're in the college football playoff or you're in your bowl game or whatever, right? And either people know about you leaving or you get to have one of these cool, like, I'm announcing at the awards lunch or awards dinner for the team thing or whatever. Like, and that's sort of how your journey begins. Would you be all right with that ease into the actual concept?
I mean, I would be okay with that. Like, I think, for me, the payoff would be playing the athletic director mode. The only thing I don't like about it is,
but like, it just sort of adds to the storyline. Like, you're not just this, I guess. You don't have to be a coach to be an athletic director.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, there's so many different ways into the AD world that I would hate for it to be like pigeonholed in that way. But at the end of the day,
what if there was an option? Like, if you were going to start athletic director mode, like you said, what was your background? And you had like 6 or 7 options. One was the coach.
Oh, sure. Coach, like, it's almost like your playbook, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's almost like your playbook. Are you a relationships guy? Are you a business guy? Are you whatever the case may be? And look, maybe if you say I'm a relationships guy, maybe that's okay. Here is the mode, and it starts with you as a coach. And maybe it doesn't even have to be as a head coach. Maybe you're a coordinator somewhere. Maybe you start your career as a coordinator or you start the thing as a coordinator at one of the 6-star schools, and then it doesn't mean that's where you're going to be the athletic director. Maybe after success as the coordinator at, say, I don't know, Ohio State, maybe then you become Kent State's athletic director, right? Maybe they do it something regionally. But I like the idea of almost of incorporating the way you would put together a coach in Dynasty mode into AD mode. What is your playbook? How are you? What is going to be your path to success here? And I think that it certainly would be possible for you to go about playing the game and doing things. Your decisions affect your standing in real time. I would be all for that. I also think that it is. I think it would be fun that if you say you are a relationships guy and you miss on a couple of targets. I think it would be fun to have the boosters start to lose confidence in you.
Okay, I can get on board with that. I get a kick out of the idea that if you're the relationships guy, like the next cut scene is you in a hot tub in Destin at the SEC spring meetings. Right?
See, like, I think that would be really important for AD mode, right? Like, you got to do the glad handing.
Yeah. And not just the glad handing, but you got to go to the meetings. They talk about TV contracts and they talk about rule changes and blah, 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 blah. Like, you got to get there and show out your great swimwear and your great spring, your beach wear too.
Right. Yeah. And listen, you go to, not only do you go to the meetings to hobnob and whatnot, but also you got to give the conference commissioner a piece of your mind.
You know,
why are we splitting payments with UTSA?
I'm also going to enjoy the idea that you get to a scene where you request an interview with George Klivikoff, and then you walk into a room and it's like, to close the door, press A. To slam it, press Z.
Yeah, I love this idea. How could you not think this is fun? How could you not think this is the future of this game?
Well, first of all, I would be athletic director Arky Shea, the athletic director who never shuts the door cleanly. Right?
I would be the athletic director that does all of his business out in the open. Fuck that. We're not shutting the door.
Listen, I know we're all having breakfast here at the Chick-fil-A. Listen, here's what I'm thinking, okay?
That's right. In my vision of athletic director mode, there is always an option when you're in conversation with someone. Like, you know how NBA 2K, it gives you the options of how to answer the people's questions, and it changes what the story is going to be. In my version of athletic director mode, one of the options would always be, you come here and say that to my face.
It could be about anything, like potential rule change about transfers inside the conference. Like, come say that to my face.
Come say that to my face. Yeah.
This is one of the more confrontational athletic directors in the country. I just want you to know.
That's right. All I said was the new scoreboard looks amazing. Yeah, you come say it to my face. You've got some balls on you, mister.
Say that to my face too. Okay. So, the more we sort of kind of build on this, I can feel some legs with it. I do have a bit of another pushback here, if you don't mind me saying so.
Please.
I feel like a great majority, I shouldn't say great majority, some of the things that an athletic director who would have a worldview of, let's just say the football program, a lot of that stuff's in, coaching mode, right? Like when you're the coach in Dynasty mode, right? Whether it's looking over points that you allocate for recruiting and so on and so forth, or, we used to be when what to do in a case of, someone's, cheating on a test and you don't want to get put on probation or something like that. There's a lot of just coach stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like though there's a lot of elements there that we could sort of, I should say elements, like there's a lot of that worldview-ness already baked into what we do. I wonder then the appetite for then wanting to not only continue the worldview, but then also add on top of that, slamming the door in Greg Sankey's face.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting, right? Like, I think that idea of allocating points of how you get jobs done, I mean, you come in to a situation and, very similar to how you get hired in the coaching carousel, and there are your expectations for what is going to be success in getting that next contract. I mean, you have to decide, if you're an athletic director, what is my priority? Is my priority building a new athletic center, raising funds? Is it, creating a winning football program, whatever the case may be? And you are going to have to balance out your efforts in maybe not just efforts. You're going to have to balance out your skill set in that way to be successful. I mean, maybe, if you are more of a fundraiser, if you are more of a builder than you are a on the field success kind of guy, maybe you are someone then that you kind of have to find those diamond in the rough coaching candidates. Maybe established head coaches are never going to say yes to you for certain things. I mean, honestly, an athletic director mode. And really, I think the next iteration of Dynasty mode, whatever it happens to be, whether it is an athletic director mode on top of what we have, whether it is taking what we have now and just sort of plussing it up a little bit, I think that EA Sports programmers, the writers, I think they have to think of this more as like Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons and less like a sports video game, in the sense that like so much of it has to be about storytelling and about where your imagination takes these these things.
There's I think in essence my biggest rub, which is if creating something, building a dynasty mode where you're trying to get as many iterations of things happening inside the game and getting, you know, your coaching contracts and who would be interested and blah, blah, blah. Like getting a full-throated edition of that it's a lot of work, right? Like it's a lot of creativity to be able to put that together. If we had an athletic director mode, especially if we wanted to go 20, 30 possibly years or something, just like dynasty mode, I'm not saying you wouldn't run into a lot of the same problems, because in life we run into a lot of the same problems in general anyway. But I feel like it's going to be a struggle to stay creative and to not have that go stale within a handful of seasons when you're doing sort of, you know, I know you're talking about sort of creating different personality types and that's how you'll handle things. But I do worry that that's going to be a really difficult thing to be a part of this game.
You know, I think this is a good place to end our conversation, because I
have one other thing I want to ask about. Then
it better be quick, because I got to put my kids to bed soon.
It will.
But I think that what I would answer to you when you say that is, I mean, didn't mascot mode get stale after the first couple times you played it? But they kept including it, right? Like it got stale to you and me, but if you put in athletic director mode, if you put in something that gives you a fun, unique way to experience this sport in this game, maybe it's the kind of thing where I don't need it constantly improved. Just give me that version.
I hear you. I understand. The one other thing I want to ask about is that I think if we're going to do this, and I'm going to get my okay, this is the one thing I ask for. Okay.
Yes, the official endorsement from Arky.
This is the one thing I asked for. You grant me on this game, and then you get my endorsement.
Okay.
You know, we always hear about athletic directors having like a list in their drawer.
Absolutely.
Of coaches, right? So
yep.
A coach leaves. Let's say you're at Kent State as the athletic director. Coach leaves. You pull out your list. You have your 5 names, whether they're the real names in the game or just the names that are in the actual game itself.
Yeah.
Who cares? But if you at Kent State call Alabama and say, can I talk to Nick Saban or I talk to his agent, you got to lose credibility points, right? Because there's no effing way. Like, if you can, like, lose
I'm sorry, Arky. In that situation, that's mama calling.
Fair. My fault. Akron calls, and they want to talk to Josh Heupel, right? Or whoever at Tennessee. You go down the list like some schools recently have, again, say in Alabama, Auburn had to apparently go down the list to get the coach that they wanted. Like that's gotta ding you, right? As an athletic director, if you wanted, okay.
Absolutely. The other part of this too is I think that part of the fun of the list is there is always the possibility that the list could get out, right? Like at some point a reporter asks you, hey, I have a source that says, Steve Spurrier is at the top of your list in this scenario. He is coming out of retirement. Then you've got to go smooth things over with your coach. You got to go smooth things over with your boosters that don't particularly like the idea of this person that's at the top of your list being at the top of the list. I think there are all kinds of fun things that could happen in this.
You give me the list. You give me an animation pulling out the list every now and then, opening the top right-hand drawer, looking at it. And then you give me the animation of crossing off guys who say no, like the red mark.
Yeah.
Then you got my endorsement, partner.
Okay. I am all for that list of 5 to 10 names being out there.
All right, that's it. All right, so I think it was a fun thought experiment. I am now on board because Demetri has promised me things. That's the way politics works. And Demetri, that's going to do it for episode 11 of Dynasty Mode. I would like for you to say goodbye to the good people.
We're in a whole new decade of Dynasty Mode now. Yeah, save and sim to next week, everybody. Mwah.